When I first started in this business, I was honestly trained by YouTube University. I went on and there was guys like Southeast Soft Wash and Forever Self-Employed who were kind of walking me through roof cleanings and telling me what they did. And when I got out there and I applied their techniques and their tactics to the stuff we have in the Northwest, I was finding that it really wasn't working that well. I even called them and paid them a couple dollars to kind of walk me through certain things. But and they did great for their climate and their market. But for what we have here in the Northwest, our moss is a little bigger. It's a little bit more aggressive. It takes hold a little bit more. So I called around and connected with a bunch of local guys who clean roofs. And what I was finding was people were like brushing the roofs off. They were like using wire brushes and scraping at the roof and like really brushing it off. So, that's what I started to do for a little bit. I started brushing the roofs off, and then I went to that zinc powder method where, you turn the roof into like a powdered donut. And I started doing that, and I wasn't really happy. Every time I would clean a roof, I would see, granules just come off of that thing. And I really didn't like it. So I really focused on coming up or finding a different method and giving the soft wash method another try. It worked on some of the houses, but some of the houses it just wasn't really working. The moss wasn't dying. I remember even going back a couple times to a few houses because they kept on calling me saying, hey, the moss isn't dead, the moss isn't dead. So what I kind of landed on, and I think I heard this somewhere, so I apologize, I can't give credit to who I heard it to or heard it from, but they said that soft washing is a long-term solution to a long-term problem. And I really love that because moss doesn't grow overnight. It takes a few years for the organics to deposit on that roof. It takes time for that moss to that algae to take hold and to grow and to turn into a full plant, and like to where you're able to see it from the ground level. So it's going to take some time for that moss to dissolve and come off. And you have to kind of trust the process. You have to make sure that your equipment's right, that you're doing the right steps, and that the moss is absorbing the chemical. And you could tell that it's absorbing the chemical and dying because it's going to turn like this whitish yellowish color. If it's not turning this whitish yellowish color, it's probably not dying. The mix is not hot enough, or the chemical isn't strong enough, or there's some factor that's not happening. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the moss and the algae to really absorb that treatment. In the case of black algae, like the Gloliocapsomagma, the black streaks that you see on the roofs, you'll see that happen a little bit more instant. That will start to melt off. But as far as the moss that's on the roof, it's going to take a little bit of time. In some instances, we'll still do a little bit of brushing, but that's not the go-to. Our goal is to make sure roofs last as long as possible. Roofs come with 20, 25, 30-year warranties on them, and I want our customers to get every year that they paid for. So the way to do that is by soft washing and trusting the process and making sure that, again, your equipment's right, you're using the right the dilutions of chemical on the roof, you're educating your process, you're doing tests, and you're just taking your time. But thank you for watching. If you like this content, make sure you hit that like button for the algorithm, subscribe, and comment below. Have you had any trouble with soft washing, and what did you learn? Thank you so much.